maybe there was just this innate fearlessness when it comes to just doing the thing, just let's do this. Let's build a business. I felt like the business is going to end. It's going down. And now it happens. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so we're just going to do this, this, and this.
The only regret I have is I didn't do it sooner. I was in that awkward moment of like, am I at a point? Should I be? Should I not be? Can I financially afford it? And it was something I should have done so much longer, because now like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I can think again. You can do anything, but not everything.
If you don't purposely slow down to recognize it, you might miss it.
Welcome back to this season of The Climb, a journey where listening to your heart reveals your true potential. With the Intermountain philosophy, on this show, we're here to teach you how to embrace the limitless nature of growth.
Women are reshaping the world, driven by their dreams. Our mission is to empower you to listen to your heart, pursue those dreams, to create a community where women like you can begin the climb to true success together.
In a world of comparisons, reconnect with why your work matters through inspiring stories of female entrepreneurs all around the world.
Discover what it means to build your legacy with authenticity and face your inner challenge with confidence.
Join us on this podcast as we explore how to become fearless, unleashing your true potential for you and your business.
If you choose to accept, your adventure awaits.
Ready to climb your inner mountain? The climb starts now. Hello, and welcome to this week's Climb with the lovely Ashley Carlson. I'm so excited to have you here. I was actually looking at when we spoke originally, and it was almost 6 months ago. That's half a year. So I am so grateful to have you here today, Ashley.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited that today's the day that we get to talk more. And it's been so great to learn about the climb and what you guys are all doing. And I'm just really excited to be a small part of it.
Oh, no, I love it. We're excited to have you here. So before we dive into your entrepreneurial journey, I would love to get to know you a little bit more. I know we spoke about 6 months ago, but I think it would be good for everybody to get to know who is Ashley and what's your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am I'm in California, born and raised here. I went away for college, came back, and I now have 2 kids. I've been married for 12 years. And for me, my career journey, I was thinking about it earlier. So I knew I always wanted to be a businesswoman, but back in the 90s, early 2000s, when I had that dream, it definitely was me wearing the power suit and going in this big high-rise building. Even though it's funny because in elementary school, if you look at the papers, I used to fill out my actual career dream in elementary school was to be a Vons checker, a grocery store checker.
I was a checker. So was I. That is
Really?
so funny. Yeah, I wanted to be a cashier checker. Yeah, 100%.
Yes, so it's actually funny because whatever year it was that they started rolling out these self-checkouts, yeah. I remember my husband was like, "Are you living your dream right now?" And I said, "Yes, check that off."
That is too funny.
Now I get to live out my grocery dreams every day at the self-checkout. But I really wanted to be this businesswoman in a high-rise building, and I just always had that drive to lead and be a part of something and make an impact. I think I always felt that. So I worked in a lot of jobs through high school, college that were always to do with something along the lines of like customer service or operations in some way. And I just loved it. And so when I graduated with a degree in business management, I just kind of continued along that path. So, and it led me through basically finding remote work in 2017 because I knew that I really didn't want to be in the corporate world while raising kids. I just saw back then how restricting it was for flexibility for moms. And so when I searched high and low for remote work, and in 2017, there was not a lot, but I was able to find this super part-time administrative job supporting a nonprofit actually. And that kind of kicked off the world of being able to see what it's like to continue your career in a flexible way while still being able to raise your kids. And that is something I think that led me to building my company, is being able to see and feel like personally how that felt to be able to do both, to be both hats, right? Because I think for me, I realized that for women, a lot of the times it becomes very difficult to continue both. So that's kind of what led me here.
That's amazing. And so you're saying in 2017 too, so this is before remote work really
Right.
became what it is today, right? Like now
Yes.
it's so much more common, obviously. But at that point, like, I mean, I'm trying to even think if I knew anyone that was remote. I mean, my dad, he was in sales, so he always kind of like maybe would go into the office once or twice a week kind of
Yes.
thing. But otherwise, he was on the road almost, right? What did that search look like? What were you looking for, and then how did you end up with the one that you found?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it was actually really interesting. It was very, very slim. There was not a lot of remote work at all back then. And one of my first glimpses of something that was like, oh, I could do this was a transcriptionist. So turning audio into typing because I'm an extremely fast typer. However, I realized quickly that one application, I think it was a very short audio clip, maybe a minute or something very short like that. It took me 20 minutes to write it because the way people are speaking or the nuances that they say, or, if you fumble over your words a little bit, there's the getting it. I was like, oh, this is not for me. I love typing, but not this. And so that kind of went out the window, and I could have always returned back to my other job, but I just really didn't want to. And so during my whole maternity leave, I basically was just searching. And then I came upon this remote admin opportunity and I applied and it worked out. And it just allowed me to at least feel like I was contributing in some way to my family financially. It also allowed me, like I said, I really, really didn't want to become just mom. I wanted to be mom and be able to grow that role and thrive in that. But I also really, really felt passionate about working. And so I just really wanted to be able to do both at the same time. And again, remote work wasn't what it is now. Now it's a lot more possible. And I think companies are now seeing that it is very possible for people to do that. But back in 2017, it wasn't. And so I'm just really grateful that I found that because I was able to raise my babies and also continue my career and be able to flex that muscle still. I didn't want to forget all the things that I had learned. And so, yeah.
That is amazing. And so continuing on with your career, then obviously you took that opportunity and then ended up building a business out of that. So what was that journey like, and what inspired Elevate?
Yeah. So basically I continued to do what I was doing, and that client referred me to another client. And so eventually I think it was three by 2021, but I had at some points had more or less, shorter engagements, things like that. But by 2021, I had also had my daughter. I got pregnant very quickly. I had 2 under 2 type of thing. They're like a little over a year apart. And so I definitely needed some time to continue doing that part-time work. I needed to balance becoming a mom and figuring all that out because that was very difficult. I will say, for anyone who's listening who is a mom, I think that we can all relate to, I had very much the expectations of myself to do everything that I was doing at the scale and the excellence that I was doing it at, whether I had the ability that I had before kids, right? But with 1 and 2 and working. And I really set myself up for failure because my expectations were unattainable. And so I needed a few years to figure out how to give myself a little bit of grace, how to be okay with not doing all that I was doing before kids. And so it did take a few years for me to find that balance, and not to say I have balance by any means now, but it's a work in progress. There's a lot more grace that I give myself now. So anyway, it took a few years to get situated. And when it came 2021, people were seeing the success of it a lot more at that point. I was then, I think because of that, because of 2020 shutdown and people going remote, I think my colleagues were seeing, oh, you really can have people support you remotely. That's amazing. So they started referring me to more people. And at that point, I had learned that I can't keep saying yes. And so I realized, all right, now is either the time for me to say no and get comfortable with that and just dial it back, or say yes, but build something bigger than just me. And so that kind of all happened at the same time as me feeling like I had finally reached a point with my kids and balancing life that I could do that the possibility of it didn't feel scary or daunting. It felt like, oh, this is all happening at a time where, yeah, I can do this. And it's funny because it took me probably a year to realize, but I'm a 3rd generation entrepreneur. So my grandfather is an entrepreneur. built an amazing business. My dad is as well. And so I feel like maybe there was just this innate fearlessness when it comes to just doing the thing, just let's do this, let's build a business. And so that's what I did. And so I just was really ready to make a bigger impact with these people who needed support. And also, I felt really excited about being able to hire people who were just like me back in 2017, women who wanted to be able to continue their careers, but also really wanted the flexibility to raise their families without the constraints of the 9 to 5.
Yeah. That is so inspiring. That's something I wanted to talk about, because I knew as you've grown your business and scaled it, you've brought on other women in the same place that, were struggling with that, right? Like, it's a hard thing to find that balance between family and work, and how do you make it work, right? And the fact that you've been able to bring on a team and help them do the same thing, that's magical. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. It's been, I would say, whenever I get asked what is my like proudest thing about the business, I will say that is usually my first answer is yes, the impact that we've made in businesses, but also the impact that I've made in these women's lives. And I think it's because I have it's a direct result of me hiring them, and I get to talk with them all the time and help them also figure out balance too, because we all struggle with that of expecting ourselves to do too much in a day, or the guilt that comes with saying yes to one thing and no to the other, that type of thing. And so we actually talk a lot about that as a team and of women who I think struggle with overcommitting ourselves. And so we talk a lot about balance. And I just appreciate being able to be the source of figuring things out and wanting to make an impact and figuring out how to do it in a way that feels really good.
Yeah. Well, I love that you have the phrase that says you can do anything, but not everything. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's very much aligned with what you're saying about finding that balance. I'd be curious, as an expecting mom over here and building my business and everything, it is something that's really scary to think about, what's going to happen when the baby is here. And, me and my husband have a plan and everything, but what are some maybe things or advice, things that you wish you'd known beforehand when it comes to like actual balance? Like you mentioned a little bit that like obviously my expectations aren't, I'm not going to be able to go full force like I am right now.
Yes.
But what other sort of things should you be keeping in mind for those that are future moms and expecting moms out there?
Yeah. So I think honestly, raising this business and raising these kids, a lot of the lessons go hand in hand. So whether I think you're an entrepreneur or a mom, what I'm about to say can go for either, is expect things to not go according to plan. And I think plans are wonderful. I think time blocking and trying to figure out what you're going to do in a day is all really helpful, because if everything does go according to plan, which there will be days that it does, then great. And you also need to be ready and okay with giving yourself a lot of grace on the days where things just don't go according to plan. So for example, I used to set my meetings during my kids' nap time. Nap time never went well on those days, ever. And so I just learned to adjust a little bit or ask for help, right? Say, you know what, I realized that as much as I want to be able to say that I can do meetings while my kids are doing this, chances are it's not going to go well. So I'm going to ask if a family member can come over and just play with them while I do my 2 hours worth of meetings. And just things like that, of not being so hard on yourself, because I know I was, that I just couldn't get to the dishes, or I had to do takeout that day because I didn't have time to prep dinner. It's the grace of knowing that things don't go according to plan most of the times in work or life or both, right?
Yeah.
So I think that to me is the biggest tip that I would give moms or entrepreneurs or both.
Yeah. And maintaining that self-compassion, because it's
Yes.
going to happen how it does, and everything typically does work out, at least. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And for the most part, I mean, we're not saving lives here, right? Like we're not heart surgeons with a patient on the table. Yes, our work is important, but it's also okay if today that didn't get done. Mm-hmm. There does need to be that grace, because I know that if the roles were reversed, right? If someone came to me and said, hey, life happened today, this happened with my kids, or my car broke down, or whatever it is, I would give them so much compassion and say, it's okay. So, yeah. But I caught myself not giving that to myself. And so I think that that's just really important.
That's such a good point too, because I've been on, it's probably been like 3 or 4 years now. It's so funny when you're talking about 2021, that's almost 5 years ago, which again, time is just fine. But once I started to like pay attention to that inner dialogue, right, and thinking listening to what I was saying to myself, I was like, God, I would never be that mean to somebody. Like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely
Exactly.
good to be paying attention to that. So as you were starting to grow your business and scale it, now you're also helping other entrepreneurs scale their businesses by taking things
Yes.
off their plate and learning about and delegating, that sort of thing. So I want to dive into delegation, but first, as you were scaling your business, what was that like? Was it planned out, or was it just happening naturally as you were going? What was that whole journey like?
Yeah, I've actually tried to think back on that a lot, and I think it was definitely a build the plane as we fly it type of situation. And I will say that I have a natural tendency to be like strategy minded. I did that whole Clifton Strengths thing, and strategic is very high on my list. And so I think I just have that natural tendency to be able to see the big picture and what needs to get done in order to get there. So that always felt very doable to me. I felt like I was able to build the plane while flying it because of that natural tendency that I had. I will say that the biggest difficulty for me was probably people management. I realized quickly that the way I work isn't necessarily how everyone else works. And so I realized, okay, so I need to get really clear on who I'm hiring and why, and ask the right questions, make sure that they can serve my clients who at that point they were coming because of me. The brand wasn't necessarily known yet. And I want to make sure that what I say we as a team do is what this person can deliver. And so that was a lot of learning along the way of tweaks to make in the hiring process, which still to this day, we tweak a little bit as we go every time. And so that, I think it was being able to disseminate what I do to more people in the way that I was expecting and that I was promising our clients. And so that was probably the very first tricky lesson. It's so interesting to think about what 3 years ago was and like the problems we were facing, because I will say too, I was telling someone that something recently happened that happened similarly in 2021. And at the time in 2021, I felt like the business is going to end. It's going down. And now it happens. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So we're just going to do this, this, and this. And it's very interesting to see the growth and the confidence that we have as a team, because we're so much stronger of who we are and what we do, that we've got this. Like there's much more of that kind of attitude now.
That's amazing. And so actually speaking of like hiring and bringing on the right people, I know you speak a lot about mission, the importance of mission, vision, and value statements for a company. I'm guessing that has something to do with it as well. Did you learn that along the way? Yeah.
Yes, I did. I don't remember it felt like it was like a workshop or something that for the first time of creating my mission, vision, and core values. And then later I went through a certification program that now I can actually help people create theirs. But when I created ours, it was very interesting to me. They told me that oftentimes your business's core values is what the CEO's core values are. And I realized that really quickly when I was establishing those, that for me, integrity, communication, proactiveness, accountability, all of those things, they are our core values at Elevate. And actually, to your point, we coach clients, we've actually done it before, to incorporate questions in your application or hiring process. Not a flat out, do you agree with these core values? Because you're going to get a whole lot of yeses, but ask questions that tells you that yes, they agree with your core values. Because I think that a lot of the times there's so many skills that can be trained, but whether or not someone is in alignment with your core values is really important. And that's something that we reevaluate every year, is our mission, vision, and core values. Make sure that we are heading in the right direction, that we're still in alignment with all that in everything we do and every relationship that we have with clients and teams. So that I really believe that is really important.
It is. And I have to ask though, because it's so crazy. We all know how important it is, but I feel like so many of us put it on the back burner a little bit. Like I know what it is internally, but having me verbalize it right now, I probably would stumble through that. And so why do you think it is that like we know but are struggling to actually like articulate it? And then what like steps would you take for somebody who's in a position that like might need to work on that?
Yeah.
Since we got you and you've done a course, you have a certification
Yeah, I
on this,
actually
so.
have a worksheet that I go through with clients who do strategic planning with me. That is the very first step that we do, is this worksheet. And it's a lot of probing questions. Who are you? Why are you doing this? What impact do you want to make in the world? And so the mission statement, I think, is pretty easy for people to make. With when answering those questions, you can come up eventually with your mission statement that you feel pretty good with. When you go through the vision statement, though, I do feel like a lot of people get pretty uncomfortable because dreaming big feels scary. But that's what the vision statement is for, is to be able to say, hey, if everything goes according to plan, what am I doing? And I think that oftentimes this statement, people don't realize it can be private. You don't have to put your vision statement anywhere if you don't want to. This can purely be something that you keep on your desktop, and you're ready to open it whenever things get hard. And you want to remember, where am I going? What am I doing this for? What impact am I trying to make? I always tell people, this isn't just the vision for your company. This is the vision for yourself. You have to remind you why you're doing this instead of going to go work for Amazon. Why are you doing this? Because entrepreneurship is difficult. It's hard. And there's going to be so many ups and downs and pivots and turns that you need this, this guiding light of inspiration of why you're doing what you're doing. And to me, that's what the mission and the vision is. And then the core values just drives everything to get you there.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And it's a good point, because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? Right. So like having that defined, again, whether you share that with the world or not, it is important, because otherwise you'll never get there. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on the topic of delegation, because I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
especially as you're starting off small business, maybe solopreneur, even consultant, coach and such, and you get to a point that, it's time to make your first hire. When do you know that that's time? Let's start there.
Yeah. So I actually have a whole workbook that I think it should be on our website to opt into, that people can grab on how to workshop through delegating. And basically what it is, what I recommend for the how to know when you're ready is, honestly, just ask yourself, are you overwhelmed? The answer probably is yes. So I even relate it to people who think, so when I talked about how I was extremely overwhelmed with 2 under 2, I even think about back then, I hired a housekeeper because it's okay that I didn't have time to scrub the baseboards and do all these other things. Like, it's also okay that I was just able to make dinner, make all the meals, clean all the dishes and all that, and then that I needed just a little bit extra help. It's like that in business too. It's okay if you're not able to do everything to the scale that you used to when you first started out. So how I paint the picture in a business is, when you first start out and you're a solopreneur, let's just say there's 5 areas of your business. All of those areas of your business, if they were buckets, they're probably more like cups at the time, right? They're just small. And you are able to do all 5 of those areas because they're smaller. But as you grow, as you succeed, it's a good thing that these cups now become buckets. They become larger. They just take more time and energy because you're doing well. What we end up doing is asking ourselves, and really being hard on ourselves, why am I failing? Why can't I do all these areas and handle all these areas like I used to? And it's because they're bigger. It's harder to manage all of it by yourself. So you do need help. And so that is the first indicator of needing help. And then the second question people usually are asking is, who is that next person? And so basically I recommend everyone go through what I call like a time audit. And it's just looking at, if you were to you can do a paper, you can do a Google sheet, whatever it is, but where you just kind of look at how you spend your time every week. What are you working on every week? And this can be even it only takes 5 minutes to respond to this email, that type of thing. Add up the time it's taking you to respond to all of these 5-minute emails versus, and the interrupting. What is it interrupting your flow of, right? So looking at all of what you do in a week, and then in the next column, I always say to put, does this have to be done by me? Is it only your area of expertise? Because most likely there's a lot that doesn't have to be done by you. So that's your first indicator of the who you might need to hire. The second column is also, does it spark joy? Is it an area that maybe doesn't have to be done by you, but like you really, really love it? And that's okay. Maybe you don't delegate that first. But if it's an area that doesn't have to be done by you and it does not spark joy, that probably is an area that you can delegate. And then the third column is it revenue generating, or on a scale of revenue generating, you can use multiple dollar symbols, things like that. So that's the kind of analysis that I have people walk through when it comes to what to delegate first, or who should I delegate, or who should I hire first. That's kind of the exercise there.
I love that. And I think it's clear too that you have an operation background, because within your business, of course, like you don't just have like traditional virtual assistants, right? You call the operations support team.
Yes.
So I think that's something too that people need to recognize. It's also not just like simple tasks necessarily. It's like look at everything that you're doing and make sure that, going through what you just said, like find ways, like things that don't make sense for you to be doing, and like what's the highest and best use of your time, right?
Yes. And I think that sometimes people, when they first start to delegate, especially if they bring on, like, for example, a VA, they'll delegate little tasks, and that might feel helpful in the start. But what feels most helpful is, let's just say, for example, delegating to the whole intake process of a new client or a new order, whatever it might be, the type of business, but the whole client onboarding workflow. If you are able to work with someone to help you establish what that entire workflow looks like and allow them to handle all of it except for the parts that have to be you, like you have to show up to the discovery call probably, and you have to do a couple other things. But other than that, the entire client onboarding workflow can probably be handled by someone else, because what I try to identify with our clients upon onboarding is, where can we take not just the time off of your plate, but the brain space? So the problem that I see people delegating, or when they delegate initially, is they're delegating such small pieces of a whole process that they are still thinking about the whole process. It's still holding brain space. And I think that that is a huge part of what leads to overwhelm. And we talked about it before we hit record today, is the amount of information that we are holding in our brains as humans these days is just too much. And so being able to also release some of that brain space, the things that wake you up at 2:00 in the morning, like that type of thing. So that's always my goal, is where can we truly own processes so you, the business owner, aren't needing to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. And it might be like, it's kind of counterintuitive, because I think initially it's hard to let go of some of the stuff. Like you want to have full control over it.
Yes.
But once you do finally let go of that and recognize now you have that extra brain space, and now you're able to be thinking more on your business, for example, right? Yep. Like those are the things, I actually recently hired a virtual assistant, and the only regret I have is I didn't do it sooner. I was in that awkward moment of like, am I at a point? Should I not be? Can I financially afford it? And it was something I should have done so much longer, because now like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I can think again. This is interesting. Yeah. What a concept.
Yes, I talk about that all the time. So like what I mentioned earlier, I don't need someone to help me with this. It just takes me 5 minutes. Okay, but how many 5-minute things are interrupting that potential 2-hour focus session for you to brainstorm on something as the business owner who wants to grow? Those 5-minute things, those quick things, can be very disruptive to all that thought space that you need in order to focus on your zone of genius and growing your business. So I think that it's so important, and it might take baby steps to get there, right? It might take delegating the really small things first. But I also always reassure people that, for example, just going back to the client onboarding example, having someone new, right, relatively new to your business, come in and see what your current workflow is, and then assist you with maybe documenting it in order for her to take it over, and then actually going through the workflow herself. Having someone brand new do all of that actually could identify ways to make it better, right? Someone with a fresh eye versus someone like you who has grown this. It is your baby. You know it so well in and out, that sometimes that doesn't allow you to think outside of the box. And so by handing over a whole process to someone new might identify things to make it better. So yeah, I think that delegation is something that I feel super passionate about. And it's, helping business owners, yes, with my team that helps implement the day-to-day support. I feel most passionately about the strategy piece, whether that's building a whole business plan or just how to delegate successfully, that's what I feel like is the foundation for that operational support success.
It is. And it helps. I mean, you're truly helping so many other people be more successful in their business by having this sort of support. So it's amazing that you've put this all together.
Thank you.
So I did see recently you did a reflection on LinkedIn. It was your birthday, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of weeks ago. So
Yes.
happy late birthday.
Yes. My 21st. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I love I love what you said. And there was 3 points to it. So you said you can't do it all, build a team you trust, and celebrate your wins, big and small. And I wanted to focus on that last one because I've seen your posts on LinkedIn, and you so often celebrate your team and what you guys are doing. And I think that's just, it's like you can't ever feel overappreciated, I feel, right? Like that's just something that I think we don't do enough as in organizations. And so I'd love to hear how you brought that into your business and what inspired that.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up because I think that it has become something so important to us as a team. I think that kind of going back to how when I became a mom and also building this business, I was so hard on myself for what I wasn't doing, what I wasn't accomplishing in a day. And I think that actually, and I didn't talk about that with anybody really at the time, right? But as now, fast forward to where we are now, we have built a team atmosphere to where we can talk about when life is feeling hard or off balance and all of that. And I realized quickly what I had felt back then and still feel often today is that we're individually just really hard on ourselves. And we do have a hard time celebrating the big and small things because I think it's human nature to see maybe where we're failing quicker than where we're succeeding. So it is really important for us to be able to recognize each other for the big and small things and we always talk about taking a pause. So every team meeting that we do, we ask everyone to share what's feeling sticky so we can talk through it and support each other, and also what's feeling good. We want to celebrate, even if it's I am having a really bad day, but I brushed my teeth and I'm celebrating that. Or, I kept the kids alive today. Whatever it is, we always take these intentional pauses to celebrate what's going really well. Maybe it was I finished this huge client project, or I made an amazing spreadsheet. And then, whatever the small or big wins are, personal or professional, we always want to make sure we take that pause. The other thing where I think what you saw was where we as a team celebrate each other. So we try to actively have everyone celebrate themselves individually. But then also we have a kudos corner form where team members can go in and either anonymously or put their name, basically show gratitude to celebrate someone who helped them or maybe made them feel good, or to say thank you for always making me laugh, or anything really. And I'll tell you that we review those kudos corner every team meeting. We have different team meetings, but once a month at our bigger team meeting, we review them. And it brings me to tears every single time. And I'm not a crier. And it makes me cry every time because it's just so great to see people celebrating each other. And it's really great to see the people who are getting the kudos realize the impact that they're having. Because I think often in a business like ours where we're service-based, we just help people all day. That's what we do. And I think sometimes we don't realize how incredible that is. And it deserves to be celebrated. So I think it's a twofold of like a personal experience that I went through as a woman, as a mom, and then as I grow my business and I see these people who just serve every day need to be recognized. And I also know how fast time goes. And if you don't purposely slow down to recognize it, you might miss it.
I just absolutely love that. I think, it also like epitomizes this need for women supporting women and like helping them shine, and yes. I think it's just so beautiful. You're putting that into your culture. It sounds like an amazing place to work.
So, thank you.
Thank you. One final question that I always ask my guests is around the self-care side of things, because obviously balance is challenging, work, family, kids, everything that comes with life, I guess, these days. And self-care really is it's so important. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of self-care routine that you've incorporated into your life that's become a non-negotiable for you.
Oh, I love that question. It's something that I think I am constantly tweaking and adjusting. but I didn't mention it before, but something else that I've been dealing with the last few years is I have multiple chronic health issues, including an autoimmune disease where I actually have to be on an IV for about 6 hours once a month for an infusion. And by that affecting like my time management even more than I already struggle, I think that for me, I really actively work on making sure I'm doing things just for me, because I found myself doing, these appointments for my health. I do these things for my family. I do this for work, but I sort of lost, what do I do for me? And when do I fit it in? And so for me in the last year, something that I have tried to actively make time for, and just it is non-negotiable, is I love to read, and I love to read fiction. And so I read every day, whether it's in the morning or in the evening or both. And I love to just get sucked away in a good book. I also really, really love just being outside on like a hike or a walk. And so I actively try to block time to do that for myself. Usually it's also listening to the audio version of whatever book I'm reading or a podcast. So just things like that. I actively try to make time for myself to do something outside of these other roles that I feel like I'm feeling just me as Ashley.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then you make a good point too, because like showering, going to the doctors, that's not necessarily self-care. That's like things you have to do, right?
Yes. And I
like
do feel like, I do feel like we end up telling ourselves that, right? Like the other day I went to Trader Joe's and I was so excited that I made time to go to Trader Joe's for groceries. And why? That's great, but
that's too funny. I always get excited around now because Trader Joe's has like the cutest little Halloween succulent.
Had them when I went. They're great gifts,
and I haven't been there yet though. I haven't gone because it's been the same thing, super busy. So the things.
Well, make sure you're listening to a podcast for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you turn it into some sort of for yourself time while you grocery shop for your family.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Ashley, this was so nice to speak with you. If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, on my own personal LinkedIn, Ashley Carlson. We also are active as a team on Instagram, which is Elevate VB Solutions. And then, of course, our website, and you can email me. It's elevatevbsolutions.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Climb. Not ready for your journey to end? Make sure to join our online community and subscribe to our YouTube channel to discover your true spirit, strength, and potential today. Details in the show notes below. Need a guide for your journey? Check out our founder, Diane Wong's new book, The Inner Mountain.
Until next time, remember, you're an experiment. Focus on your own path and continue to climb your inner mountain. Thank you.